are good, holy, and whole bodies, fully bearing the image of God just as they are. While there is certainly diversity of feelings when it comes to one's own relationship to one's own disability, disability theologians and activists reject the assumption that all disabled people want to be fixed. The problem instead of the disabled person is a society and its structures that isn't built to accommodate differences in abilities. A culture that doesn't embrace the reality that everyone has an array of strengths and challenges. Avery Arden, who I mentioned earlier, celebrates Jacob's story as an important one for disability theology. They point out that Jacob continued to struggle ferociously after he was disabled, and that he prevailed and was blessed after he was disabled. They observe Jacob does not have to be fixed, his disability cured, in order to receive God's blessing or to continue his covenantal relationship with God. The next part of our Bible passage shows Jacob getting the new name Israel. This man with a mobility impairment becomes the paradigm for all of God's chosen people. His disability does not make him less beloved by God or worthy of his special role. This is a powerful, good word. And I think that this reframing is not only significant for people with disabilities, it also suggests a reframing for all of us who wrestle with God and find ourselves limping away. Perhaps sometimes we are leaving our wrestling with a painful wound, but perhaps we are sometimes leaving having been transformed in such a way that the world doesn't quite accept us or accommodate us the way it used to, the way it should. My wrestling with troubling biblical passages has certainly led me to some liberative interpretations that a good chunk of the world is not eager to accommodate. And I think the Bible tells us pretty consistently that as we live out our faith, we will often find people and power structures who resist accommodating the demands of love and justice. Wrestling with a wild God during our bleakest nights leaves a mark that sets us apart and perhaps adds some challenges to our lives in a world that's not quite ready for how we've changed. And it also gives us a blessing. These blessings can take many forms, but they are about God's favor, God's good news, God's presence. Gifts that are worth the grueling intensity of grappling with God. So I want to close with a poem of blessing written by theologian Jan Richardson, and it's fittingly called Jacob's Blessing. If this blessing were easy, anyone could claim it. As it is, I am here to tell you that it will take some work. This is the blessing that visits you in the struggling, in the wrestling, in the striving. This is the blessing that comes after you have left everything behind, after you have stepped out, after you have crossed into that realm beyond every landmark you have ever known. This is the blessing that takes all night to find. It's not that this blessing is so difficult, as if it were not filled with grace or with the love that lives in every line. It's simply that it requires you to want it, to ask for it, to place yourself in its path. It demands that you stand to meet it when it arrives, that you stretch yourself in ways you didn't know you could move, that you agree to not give up. So when this blessing comes, born in the hands of the difficult angel who has chosen you, do not let it go. Give yourself into its grip. It will wound you, but I tell you, there will come a day that when what felt to you like limping was something more like dancing, as you moved into the cadence of your new and blessed name. Amen. So now, as we shift into a time of prayer, I want to begin with a prayer request for those worshiping at Moon Beach this day, and for the continued financial health and support of Moon Beach. We'll take just a moment of silence to hold these prayers in our hearts. God, you are a God of compassion and love. Time after time, we have experienced your care and provision. Time after time, you've answered our prayers and met our needs, often in ways we could never have dreamed possible. We praise you for your faithful love toward us. Because we have known your love, we come to you with confidence, offering our prayers for the world that you love. We see so much pain and suffering, so much anger and frustration and despair. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the needs around us. But we continue to bring our prayers to you in faith, because we know that nothing is impossible for you. God, we pray for those suffering the effects of recent disasters, floods, hurricanes, earthquakes, and fires. We pray for the regions of our world caught up in violence and threats of violence. We pray for those who live with serious illness, those with chronic pain, those without access to proper medical care, those for whom treatment is no longer an option. Merciful God, you sent your Son, Jesus Christ, to show us a different way to live, the way of deep humility and compassion. You called us to love one another and to work together with one heart and mind, balancing our needs with the needs of those around us. Give us courage to follow faithfully and with integrity, so that our lives will be a reflection of you, whose name is love and whose work is justice. And now we pray together the prayer Jesus shared with his friends. Our God, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
This past week, a new roof was installed on our building, and if you weren't here during the week and saw it done, you wouldn't believe how fast they could do it. It was amazing. Because of the strength of our church endowment and this congregation's past financial stability, we were able to fund this project, allowing us to continue the ministry of the congregation through our physical space. We receive an offering every week so this type of ministry in our congregation can continue. You can also use a smartphone to scan the QR code shown here to give a donation through our online giving platform. That's if you can figure out how to do it. Together. Great God, please receive our gifts for the glory of your name and the blessing of your people. May we be dedicated stewards of your abundance and use these gifts for the benefit of your kingdom. Amen.